I'm honored to share a few moments with Senator Chambliss on the floor of the Senate, pay tribute to a great Georgia legend, Larry Munson. Larry Munson was born in Minneapolis, as Senator Chambliss said, and after the service got a scholarship for broadcasting school and got his first job at the University of Wyoming calling their football games. He worked his way to Tennessee, where he was the announcer for the Vanderbilt basketball program and the Vanderbilt football program. And then when the Atlanta Braves moved from Milwaukee to Atlanta, Larry Munson was brought in to be one of the announcers for Atlanta Braves baseball. Shortly after that, Ed Thelanious, the voice of the Georgia Bulldogs for years, retired, went to another job, and Larry Munson was asked to take over broadcasting at the University of Georgia. He was a Yankee, an outsider, not one that many people thought much of when he started, but he became a legend in his time and is a revered person in our state. You know, Mr. President, it's said that the Southeastern Conference football is not a game, it's a religion. And in that analogy, if it's a religion in the Southeastern Conference, Larry Munson was the high priest. He was the man that everybody looked to make the call that nobody else could. Greatest tribute I ever saw to Larry Munson was on SEC football on Saturday afternoon at 3:30 when a couple of years ago, before he retired, the announcers for CBS television brought in Larry Munson's radio play-by-play and set themselves aside because he was that good. He brought the game to life. He brought a spirit to the game that you just couldn't find. And he was a homer. He was a hometown boy. There was no question who he worked for, no question who signed his ticket. He was always fair, but he was always friendly to the dogs. It was his spirit that brought the University of Georgia from the doldrums of the 1960s to the heights of college football, the national championship in 1980, 4 SEC championships in the last 12 years, and hopefully an SEC championship this Saturday night. Larry Munson passed away a few days before Thanksgiving in his beloved town and hometown of Athens, Georgia. Though he started in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and went to Wyoming and later to Tennessee, he finally resided in Georgia, he died in Georgia, and he is esteemed in our state. So on this day, let me, on behalf of the people I represent in my state, of all persuasions when it comes to college football, pay tribute to a man that gave every single measure of himself to make sure that every single person who listened to his voice saw a game whether they were blind or whether they could see, because he brought life to a game that nobody else could. Larry Munson was a great Georgian, a great American. He will be missed, but I can promise you this. His view of Sanford Stadium today is far better than the view he used to have in the broadcast booth, because he's very high over a stadium he loved, a stadium where he made his living, and a stadium where he will always be remembered. And I yield back the balance of my time. And note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.